All right, welcome into Ethan Skolnick starting 9 here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Let me pick that up just a little bit. I'm here every single Tuesday and Wednesday from 9 to 9:30 here on the channel. You can also catch the latest episodes of 5 on the Floor on the Miami Heat on your favorite podcast networks. Also, you can get it on the YouTube channel. We did an episode, myself and Brady Hawk, from the wreckage last night at FTX Arena with the Heat losing by 15 to Memphis. Pretty much the only good thing that happened was Tua and Bernie got to spend some time together. We are not going to talk Heat today, though, so I don't want to scare everybody off. We'll do that tomorrow. Today is a Canes day. Mario Cristobal will be announced as the new head coach of the Miami Hurricanes today at 10 o'clock. We'll have Jazz Santana from Six Rings Canes there to cover it on the scene. Great episode last night. If you missed it, it's still here on the YouTube channel. The Six Rings Canes guys, they had like 16 guests. They went on for 2 hours. Make sure you catch that stream. I'm going to actually catch it after the show because, again, I was at the Heat game. But we're going to have one of the members of Six Rings Canes, Vishnu Parasuraman, on with me at about 9:15 today. And he was on, again, the show last night. But we're going to go through some stuff because we talked 2 weeks ago about what might happen. Now we're going to talk about what happens from here. So Mario introduced today at 10 a.m. Obviously, everybody's very excited about it, but I want to break down what the realistic expectations should be. And also, we want to counter some of these ridiculous national media narratives that have been going on for the past 3 days, where essentially Miami was, not spending any money because they were cheap and didn't care about the program. And now they're spending money and they must be stealing it from somewhere. I mean, this is basically how things go against Miami sports. So we'll get into that with Vish a little bit later in the show. We are sponsored today, and I am wearing a t-shirt. Let me see. I'll hold it up. Intense Nutrition. Intense Nutrition is one of the new sponsors, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm actually heading up there later today. Intense Nutrition is where you want to go. If you want to go to like that 3-letter chain, you want to get some actual personalized service by a local company. Intense Nutrition is based here in Coral Springs. You can get all of your supplements there. They're there on 2540 North University Drive. That's 2540 North University Drive. And you can do everything. They've got specific stacks for you. They've got, if you're an aging man, I hate to say I am myself, a budding athlete, I'm no longer that, or you just want to fight cold and flu season. Also, they can help you with their pre and post workout regimens. I'm actually going up there today to design a program, and they can help you with the intense cleanse and detox. You can lose 10 to 15 pounds in 10 days. I know some of you watching could probably benefit from double that, but 10 to 15 is pretty good in 10 days. So reach out to Intense Nutrition. The phone number is 954-775-0257, 954-775-0257. And again, 2540 North University Drive in Coral Springs. You can also follow him on Instagram and Facebook, as our producer Manny Chang was nice enough to put up. All right, so let's get to it, and we will talk with Vish about the specifics. He just put a great article up on 5reasonsports.com, which I had a chance to scan just right before I got in the shower, about what happened with Manny. He's already kind of covered what happened with the former AD, whose name we will no longer mention, but what happened with Manny specifically and why this thing didn't work. Because I think Vish was one of those who wanted it to work. I wanted it to work. I think we liked the Manny Diaz story. Okay, Miami guy, obviously has deep roots in this area. I forget the FSU thing. But he came back with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, the turnover chain, the transfer portal, the way that he recruited. He tried to bring guys back into the program, but it just never worked. There were a couple of okay wins in there, but for the most part, he'll be remembered for the awful losses. The loss to FIU. Like, FIU didn't beat anybody after that, as our guys at the Shula Bowl podcast know. The loss to North Carolina, when there were actually still some expectations, where they gave up about 500 rushing yards and a half. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And then this year, the loss to an FSU team that was bottom of the barrel for FSU teams. Good to see you. We always appreciate you joining us. He just couldn't stay. Like, Mario or no Mario, like, I understand that he may have found a quarterback here, and I think he has in Tyler Van Dyke, but this program was not going anywhere under his leadership. When he recruited well enough, he didn't coach well enough. He didn't bring in the right assistants, or the right assistants left. Now, Lashley, in his case, he got a head coaching job. You understand that. But even his work was up and down here. It just didn't work. And sometimes we sort of overanalyze this stuff, but sometimes a guy is just not the right guy at the right time. Now, maybe if Manny had coached at another program, maybe like, I don't know, Temple, and then come here where he had some head coaching experience, some administrative experience, it would have gone better. But I mean, the way he had to keep yo-yoing back and forth, I'm coaching the defense, I'm not coaching the defense, right? And then this year, I think what really sunk him was not going to the young guys sooner. And we'll talk to Vish a little about that, but mostly we're going to project forward today. He started to win in conference when he started playing guys he probably should have been playing at the beginning of the season. Now, that's always a tricky thing because what coaches will tell you, I had this conversation with Eric Spoelstra many times. What coaches will tell you is that sometimes you get performance from a young player because of the way that you brought him along, because you didn't force the young player into the action, because he had time to watch. I mean, Eric Spoelstra would probably say that about Omer Yurtseven right now. Has said it about other guys. Like, you always want me to play the young guys. There's a reason we're developing the young guys at the rate we are. Now, I don't want to get into the Max Strus conversation from last night because I think that is just patently ridiculous. The guy was the only guy who played well the previous game, and he doesn't get in until 3 minutes are left, and all hope is lost. Okay. But I told you I wasn't going to talk Heat today. But we've talked about this with the Dolphins, too. I mean, look what's happening with the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins were playing their young players earlier in the season, but they're in more prominent roles now. And we are seeing what you can get from Waddle, from Phillips, from Holland, and from others. Dolphins coaching staff would probably say, well, the fact that we didn't push Jalen Phillips too much during training camp, if you remember, he's kind of playing third team. Like, that has helped us now. It's hard to know. You never know for sure if it's, if the coach should have played the guy sooner or if the way that the coach brought the guy along helped him perform at a higher level when he finally did play. But whatever it was striking this year with Manny. Like, that team he put on the field early in the season was not good enough, and he wasn't coaching it well enough. They couldn't tackle, which, the fundamental things. It was just time. Like, so what I recommend to everybody is that you read Vish's article and then we just move on. Like, we moved on from Al Golden and Randy Shannon and ultimately Larry Coker, even though there was a national championship in there, and all the other coaches who've come through UM and all the other coaches who've come through the Dolphins and all the other coaches who've come through the Panthers. Okay. I mean, the Heat only have had like 3 coaches, but I say we just move on. Like, there's really nothing else to discuss. He wasn't good enough for this job at this moment. I don't know if he would have been good enough if he would have gone somewhere else. And the way he's kind of handling it now, I think he's handled it with complete class the entire time until the statement. And I understand being frustrated and all the rest. And we've heard some rumors about what may go on legally behind the scenes. But I mean, ultimately, what did Manny expect? Like, he won 7 games. Like, if the bar has moved to that level at this point, if that is what is considered, your expectations at this stage, right? Like, you're not the right guy. Now, that doesn't mean, as we project forward, that UM fans' expectations should return to where they were under Jimmy Johnson. College football has changed. Everybody's on television now. Kids can go anywhere. South Florida has been pretty much picked apart by the Alabamas and until recently, the Clemsons of the world, right? So this is a build back. It's a build. You're not going to be in the Schnellenberger, Jimmy Johnson, Butch Davis recruiting time immediately, right? It's a build back. Butch built it back. I don't think it gets all the way there, but I do think that you have a better chance now. And I do think that Canes fans are going to be frustrated with some of the same things with Mario that they've been frustrated with other coaches. They didn't love him as an in-game coach in Oregon. They felt that he underachieved. He had a franchise quarterback, so to speak. I mean, we talk about this guy all the time, Justin Herbert, right? Didn't win anything of great significance. So I think what we do today is read Vish's article, move on from Manny, and then let's try to create some realistic expectations for where this program can go now that they decided they want to actually take it seriously, which I think is the bigger deal than the coaching change. There seems to be a philosophical change, and a new AD, who we'll talk about, would probably help that. All right, before we bring Vishnu on, I want to tell you about another sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's our friends over at Everything Trade Shows. They were the sponsor of the big show last night. EverythingTradeShows.com is where you want to go if your company is going back to trade shows, as many are here at the Convention Center in Broward. I can tell you down at Miami Beach, it's full every weekend now. And what do you get at a trade show? You get a booth. What do you want that booth to do? Grab people's attention, right? Like you want people to actually be like, oh, wow, look at that. I got to check that place out. So go to everythingtradeshows.com. You don't actually have to go to their office, although it's based here in Las Olas. They service all 50 states. And they can help you all over the place. But the other thing that they do is if you mention 5 Reasons, because they just happen to like us, they will give you a promotion. They will build your booth. I mean, the rendering at least. They're not going to give you the whole damn thing, but they will build the rendering for free. They will show you exactly how it's going to look. And they got all kinds of different products there. And some of the companies that they work with, many of you are familiar with Citrix, which is based right here in North Lauderdale. They work with them. They work with Microsoft and dozens of other companies. So reach out to everythingtradeshows.com. That's everythingtradeshows.com. Our friend Chris Chase and everybody over there will take very, very good care of you. Again, you can talk to Chris about all of our sponsors, are Miami sports fans, so they've all been suffering along with you. I don't think Chris is a hurricane though, so I don't know that you want to mention that. But reach out to everythingtradeshows.com. All right, we're going to bring on our guy. We had him on here 2 weeks ago. What might happen, and now things are happening. 10 o'clock today, Mario Cristobal will be introduced as the new coach of the Miami Hurricanes. We've got Vishnu Parasurman on here. He's got a new article on the 5 Reasons Sports site, looking back at the Manny era. VRP 2003. There, he's got the full Miami gear today. It is a Miami day here.
This is how I always dress, so it was just put on my normal outfit, but it's a running joke at work and everything. I'm always wearing Miami. I don't live in Miami, so it's kind of like a known thing. This is what's in my closet.
Yeah, you're bringing Miami up there. That's fine. That's okay. My daughter dresses me, so it's all right. And she's not here today, which is why I'm wearing an Intense Nutrition shirt. Although you should check out Intense Nutrition in Coral Springs. All right, let's do this quickly. We're gonna do this in one question, and then we're gonna move forward. Close the book on the Manny era.
It was a complete disaster and should never happened. That is the reality. Is he shouldn't have been the coach here. Whether or not I heard as I was coming on, you saying maybe he would have been successfully gone to Temple. I'm honestly curious how a Temple Manny Diaz would even coach. So much of his tenure here was built around fluff and playing to the media and playing to the local, I would say, stereotypes almost. Like he's not going to bring out a turnover chain in Temple, right? That wouldn't work. So I'm curious, like what he would have actually, what that even would have looked like, and maybe he would have focused more on football and been more successful. But there was certainly right to the end, an intense, really overemphasis on social media and being out there, and I just don't think Temple has the traction to even do that. You saw that at the end, right? At the Duke game, he started this slogan of building something special and had players out there like tweeting it out and doing Twitter spaces talking about it. It's just like, what is going on? You just lost to Florida State like a week ago. Like, this is ridiculous. And I think that, to me, is the bookmark on his tenure is just, I wish he had focused more on the football. There's so much.
I could hire him.
Actually, yeah. I don't think he'll work. You just don't mention me. I don't think he's going to be wanting to work with me after some of the stuff I've written over the years. But I think when you think about his legacy, so much of it is not football. It's turnover change. It's touchdown rings. It was tackling a tackling dummy that said 7 and 6 on. That's sliding on the tarp in the rain. It's how much of it's actually like good football. Basically, none of it. And that, I think, is probably the hallmark of it. There's a lot of bad losses. It's hard to remember very many good wins. Probably the Pitt game this year was his best win. Yeah. And it's so much is not football related. And I think, if you write like on his tombstone, it's like should have focused more on just winning games, because ultimately that's what people care about.
Yeah, there's a certain delusional. I don't know. Canes fans can be delusional about certain things, but I think with this particular tenure, they hit it right. Like, expectations for this franchise, this program, I still think are too high. But you do have the expectation of beating FIU. You do have the expectation of beating the worst FSU team that we've seen in, 25 years. You do have the expectation of not giving up 400 rushing yards to North Carolina in a half. These are reasonable expectations. And,
when you're setting score records defensively for negatively, and Mark D'Onofrio was your defensive coordinator for 5 years, that's pretty appalling, right? And to your point, just so many bad losses. The first bowl game he coached in, did not even score, not enter the red zone. This is against Louisiana Tech. I agree with you. We tend to overreact to, we think, like you said, it's still the 80s and we're just going to show up and blow everyone out. That's just not happening anymore. But the level, like, this was a slam dunk. This was not a gray area. And that's why when he's still trying to spin in the medium, like, this isn't even close. This is not really debatable in terms of his 3-year arc, whether or not he should still be the coach.
You know what I think he ran into here as we pivot to Mario is that he tried to win over the media. He was a media person to a certain degree. But he's being replaced by a guy who has so many friends in the media down here that he wasn't going to get the benefit of the doubt. I do think that, I mean, one of the reasons that Mario and we knew and 2 weeks ago and everybody else knew about this pursuit is because literally Mario talks to everybody down here. Like he always has. I mean, he's part of this community, but he was close with various media members who don't even live here anymore, but still kind of know what's going on. And I feel like Manny wasn't going to win that fight. Like, I mean, Manny might have tried to be one of this market, and to a certain degree, because of his family heritage, etc., he was, but not like Mario. Like,
Manny
anchor
is
an offensive
not.
line.
Yeah, and Manny is not as entrenched in this community. I know his dad was mayor, and everyone's like, "Oh, his dad's mayor. He's a native son." He is, but he's not as entrenched, not nearly as deep in this community as Mario is. I mean, and you could actually see the media that came to his defense was largely out of Bristol. Yes. Where he worked and where he still has roots. He has more ties to that in national media than he does to the local people. And you know, he like I mean this is kind of maybe a little unfair, but he doesn't really speak Spanish, and this is for a Cuban growing up in Miami. It kind of shows you he didn't really embrace Miami until later in life.
Yeah, no doubt.
He went to FSU, went to Bristol, and then he kind of came back here and started to try and embrace Miami. Mario's always been 100% Miami, and I think there's a distinction there. Like, he's going to be at the Ventanilla this morning getting a colada. Like, you already know this, right? I mean, this man is Miami. And so, to your point, when you're getting replaced by someone that is more popular locally with more local roots, you're just not going to get traction on trying to, like, push back on that and get some media, I guess, backing.
Well, why do you think? I really do want to move on to Mario, but why do you think? What's your theory on why the national media has been so up in arms about the treatment of Manny when it feels like, to me, this happens everywhere, and it also feels to me like, again, he brought this on himself by not winning enough. And I mean, I guess I have my theories, which I've put out on 5 Reasons, etc. But it seems to be totally over the top. Like I don't even know what they're holding on to here. What did they do wrong? Not fire him earlier? Is that the issue here? I mean, lots of programs have done this.
Yeah, I think, and I might actually write something on this or work it into a Mario article. I'm definitely going to write something on Mario this week. But just, I mean, I hate to be this person. This is just anti-Miami bias. Yeah. Because if you watched over the week, just the shifting reason to criticize Miami, it wasn't even consistent. It was just like, let's make something else up. Yesterday was that ridiculous thing on, I guess, a blurb in Manny Navarro's article about how UM made money off their hospital system and then immediately got picked up as Miami profited off the pandemic, and that's how they're paying for a football coach. When, by the way, this whole thing is being privately funded, not by the university. Right. Just like every other school does, by the way, because every school, if you read like the coach's contract, the school pays them $10. The booster club pays them $10 million. Like that. Right. That's how most schools are run. We've always run differently. We're actually just catching up with the big boys now, and so like it was just shifting narratives, just a new reason to criticize Miami. And I do think the one thing that's sort of true, although I would question the conventional wisdom on this, it is certainly not normal to conduct a coaching search. Well, maybe it is in Miami with the Sperano thing, but it's not normal in other places to conduct a coaching search when you still have your coach employed. With that said, other lines of business, that's not that abnormal. You line up your ducks before you release the old person because someone needs to do that job. And I think as much as he's being treated poorly and all that, and to a certain extent, I would say he's more being treated abnormally. Like, normally you fire the coach first, then figure it out. They went the opposite way. Was that right? I don't know. I do know, like, under no circumstances, I know there was this whole, it's either going to be Mario or Manny. Under no circumstances could they bring Manny back. Like, that was not going to fly. So it would be, if Mario had not come, which I think they were fairly confident would happen, which is why they weren't worried about it. But then they would have put him in a bit of a difficult situation because there's no way they could sell Manny to the fan base. But, I mean, does it really matter? Like, he's an adult. He has a job with a very lucrative contract that he's going to get paid now for being fired for several years. Like, That's why he sucked it up and took it. He was in control of that situation as much as Miami.
Right.
He did not have to deal with that. Even he could have just sat in the athletic department like, I'm not doing interviews, I'm not recruiting. Screw you guys. You fire me or not. I'm not obligated to go take a recruiting trip. He chose to go be out there because he thought he could still keep his job. Whether or not that was true, I suspect it was not. But he certainly believed it enough to try and campaign to keep his job. So if it's a realistic enough option where the coach thinks he might not get fired, why would the school fire him if it's actually possible they're not going to fire him? And that's the part that you can't simultaneously say they're either going to go Mario or Manny, and Manny might keep his job, and also a lot of his national media buddies pumping out, hey, look how many games Miami won in a row at the end of the year. Just pretend Florida State didn't happen. Let's remove that. Remove that they almost lost to a 3-win Georgia Tech team at home, and those were 2 of the last 4 games. Let's forget those happened. Forget the first quarter against Duke. Just focus on the positives, And then, they really shouldn't fire him, and it would be reasonable to keep him. And then say, why haven't you fired him yet at the same time? It's just, it was really ridiculous, and it kind of reminds you of what happens when Miami is good, and they're not even good yet. They just made a splash. But all they did was do something that people said they couldn't do, which was go get Oregon's coach. And that was enough to just set everyone off.
Well, LSU just went out and got they got a Southern man from Notre Dame, right? They went out and got a coach from Notre freaking Dame, not Oregon. Okay, I didn't hear any backlash except about the
because LSU is allowed to do that, right? Miami's not allowed to do that, and that's why I hate to be like their anti-Miami bias, but it completely is. Miami is not allowed to go pay for Oregon's coach. And that is what they're mad about.
Well, the other part of it, Vish, is this whole idea of replacing somebody while they still have a job. I mean, literally, isn't that what is done in college football to athletes all the time? You have a quarterback, you don't like the quarterback, you go recruit another one to take the guy's job. And you mentioned Steve Ross. I mean, with Steve Ross, it's kind of, look, they do this thing all the time. Okay, I mean, it's Harbaugh and Sperano, Tua and Watson, etc. I mean, But again, it is the nature of the sport. I mean, the athletes are replaceable. Coaches are replaceable. The only difference is when coaches are replaced, they get a big financial golden parachute. That's the difference. I don't know why anybody's crying for them, but it is a Miami thing. And we could talk about that forever because to me, it goes back to obviously UM's glory days, but also to the Big Three Heat and everything else. It's
also just the nature. It's the nature of any business. You do not remove your chief executive without having already lined up the replacement. Like only in football, right? In coaching, do they ever fire the guy first? And I'll tell you what, you think that LSU started talking to Brian Kelly last week? No way. This is the only issue here was there were leaks coming out left and right, and that allowed people to, frankly, selectively choose which leak they wanted to believe in order to just rip on Miami. And so
part of it too is, like I said earlier, Mario talks to everybody. I mean, that's one. I mean, some of this was and some of this was coming up from there, and so and it was
and I mean, to that point, and I think he'll be very popular here. He's as a contrast to Diaz, is he stands up and just takes, he owns himself, and he yesterday after quitting went on. Oregon has a statewide sports radio station that's the most popular radio station in Oregon. He went on there and did an interview with essentially a drive time radio host and talked for 10 minutes to them and fielded questions, and they challenged him on it, and he stepped there and said, everyone doesn't have to understand why they did this. I understand people are upset. I'm going home though. And afterwards, and this is probably a testament to Mario, the producer on the show said, I've never seen anyone do that before. Right. And I'm really rooting for him at Miami, and I would not, and that's completely the opposite of what I felt when Willie Taggart left and went to Florida State. So you can kind of see, and I don't think he does it to curry favor. That's just who he is. Mm-hmm. He's a stand-up guy, and frankly, after a lot of the snake oil salesmen we've had running this program, it'll be a welcome change.
Well, and it's not just in the program, people who've left. I mean, LeBron went home in 2014, and as you know, I always say he thanked the fans because he did afterwards and uninterrupted, but he didn't do enough for the fans. He didn't do a radio interview down here in South Florida to thank the fans. And Nick Saban, because I was there through all of that, certainly didn't do anything to thank the fans down here. They were, you know, his wife didn't like the Publixes in Fort Lauderdale. So
Who
yeah,
doesn't like Publix? I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know.
I know, I'm joking.
It was sort of described to me as more of a demographic issue, but look, he didn't stand up. He bolted, and that was pretty much it. And that's typically what people do. So let's pivot here in the last couple of minutes we got. Before we do, though, I want to mention if you're gambling on anything related to Miami or anything going forward, BetUS is where you want to go. BetUS.com. Use the code 5. Use the code 5. You get 125% promotion there. Plus, here's the other thing. If you take a screenshot of your deposit at BetUS, we're going to be so kind as to send you a t-shirt. And we do have UM shirts on the site now too. Well, we've got one you probably don't want, which was an FIU shirt, which says University of Coral Gables. But we've got a 5-star shirt. Of course, we got plenty of Heat shirts. We've got plenty of Dolphin shirts. And yeah, we're probably going to cook up a Mario shirt here in the next couple of weeks as soon as we come up with what that is. So use the code 5 at BetUS. Make your deposit. Bet with a great betting platform. And you know that other one, the one in Hollywood, you can't use that app right now. So you can use this app. Okay, so go to betus.com, use the code 5, FIVE, and then send the screenshot, and we will send you a t-shirt. All right, what do you want to hear from Mario today?
I mean, I'm not sure if I'm looking for anything in particular. I'm sure he's going to talk about how great it is to come home. This is his alma mater. And I think for people outside of Miami, it's hard to articulate, like, how special it is to be in Miami as someone from Miami. And not just the school. I think the whole South Florida area is very insular and it's us against the world, and that's kind of the mentality, and it's home. And a lot of people hate it, like you mentioned, the Sabans. But yes, the people that love it, really love it, and are prideful of it. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of that, a lot of great to be home. This is where I went to school. I'm sure he's going to try and temper some expectations and talk about how we need to grow and build here. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything in particular I'm looking at hearing in terms of, he's not going to like release his like 5-year plan or something. So, I mean, I would expect to hear those things. I mean, I think it's just really a day of celebration, not just because Mario's home and because, you know, what he symbolizes for Miami. I mean, he and his brother played at Miami. This is Miami royalty coming back home, but also just the way, like, he was Oregon's head coach in Miami. This is a whole, like you said, the mindset shift is almost more important than the particulars that Mario is the coach, and so that I think will come across here. He'll probably talk about commitment and how we're gonna, you know, do things differently. And I think in this instance, for the first time in a long time, that's actually going to be true.
Give me an expectation real quick. Winning is we always joke about winning the Coastal. I mean, because that was an Al Golden thing. I mean, but it seems to me like that. I mean, they should check that off next year, right? Like, I mean,
yeah. I mean, I always put caveats on this. So, assuming it's a similar Coastal to what it has been for the last 10 years, they should absolutely win the Coastal. There's always that issue where, you know, one program, you know, takes a leap forward and is actually legitimately good. Like in 2017, for example, Miami was that program. Now I know it petered out at the end, but like no one else was winning that Coastal, right? I mean, when Miami's winning 10 games and you know, blowing out Notre Dame on national TV and stuff, like the mediocrity of the Coastals, you're not gonna win that. But assuming it's like a normal Coastal like this year or the previous few years, yeah, that would be a minimum expectation, I would say. But of course, you could have a situation where like maybe Brent Pry, maybe there's like a bunch of unhidden talent at Virginia Tech that Justin Fuente just couldn't use. Right. And Miami does play at Virginia Tech next year. So maybe that's, you know, a situation where, oh, wow, Virginia Tech won 11 games. Okay, maybe you don't win the Coastal, right? But barring like the normal like 8-9 wins the Coastal, yeah, I think minimum expectation would be that.
All right, read the new article on the 5 Reasons site. We do not charge you. There is no paywall. You can also follow him for free, although he probably should charge for this. VRP 2003. Thanks to our sponsors, BetUS. Use the code 5, FIVE. Intense Nutrition. I'm heading up there. They're going to put me on a program and work my ass out. See how that goes. And everythingtradeshows.com. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll try to dissect the mess that is the Miami Heat. Enjoy Mario Day.